Hi, this was a fun build to make and play. It basically enabled me to farm out a mage bot in 5 days, and I was also able to farm out like 250 divine orbs, I think, from league start in just 12 days, so this build is very powerful and excels at farming on juice map and also in Simulacrum. It seems that people got interested in this build. I got some questions, so here's a video to basically explain everything with and around this build. The video has multiple sections, feel free to skip some of them or just watch the parts where you are most interested in to fix something in your version. Good news, in the current version of the game the build itself got buffed. We have a new cycle, and also they changed the energy blades quality stats on the gem itself, so now basically it's much easier to hit higher energy shield numbers. This build is tanky, so you can push this build to level 100. There are a few map mods that you should avoid at all costs, like the no regen mod, and if you stack too much of the reduced block, reduced energy shield gain and so on, it would be hard to survive on a map like that. The energy blade skill is the core of this build. It got introduced in 2 weeks ago, maybe 3, and then they later on introduced the Spellblade support. The basic of the skill is that it uses some of your energy shield to make a weapon. It completely changes your weapon in your hand, but you can push it into really high damage numbers. As I mentioned, the skill just got buffed, so it is also important to scale the quality with an enhanced support. Level 3 is just enough, it's cheap, you don't have to push for the level 4, but you can, of course. The most important thing with Energy Blade is that you scale your damage and your spells very differently than in any other spell builds. The damage of the actual spell and the base damage doesn't really matter, so you don't have to get a level 21 gem and so on. What really matters is the damage of your Energy Blade and the quality of the gem. So the best to just get a level 1 gem with 23 quality and you can just level it up. With Energy Blade you can experiment a lot with the skill gems. Basically any skill works with Energy Blade. It doesn't matter what kind of damage it does, everything will be a high base damage, lightning damage skill. The most important stat on a gem is the actual added damage effectiveness. In Path of Exile wiki there is a page where you can check all these out, you can sort them based on these effectiveness and you can just try to experiment with multiple gems. I took the route of using projectile gems, and I also wanted to use the shotgunning ability of some of them. Shotgunning is kind of a rare stat, you can't really do this shotgunning with many skills. There are a few exceptions. For example, Ice Spear is one of them, and the new Soulrend is another one. It means that from a single cast, or in our case a single trigger, the same spell, the same trigger can hit the same enemy multiple times. This is mostly achieved with returning projectiles. One of the build's pros is that it requires only common unique items. This is also a problem, it doesn't let you change too many things, or at least the way I build this character. One of the most important items is the Ivory Tower. It is a unique body armor. It's common, so you will be able to buy a 6-link relatively cheaply, and there will be many good corrupted ones with good implicits. If you check out its description, then it becomes clear that our goal is to scale our life as high as possible, and then reserve as much of it as possible. The more leftover life you have, the more wasted ES potential your character has, so make sure that you max it out. You can achieve this in multiple ways, you can check out my POB, but you can make your own choice of what aura gems do you want to use and how do you want to reserve them. Some of them will reserve your mana and some of them your life. The Raspit is also a common item. Unfortunately, it was pricey at league start, I bought it for like 2.5 divine orbs, but now it's like 30 chaos. Since we scale your HP, and you should be above 6k HP even on a lower budget, it gives you a massive amount of spell damage and spell crit chance. Don't worry about the downside. The wording here is sacrifice and not cost of skills. It means that you will be still able to cast or trigger a spell even if you don't have enough life of it, but the game prevents you from killing yourself, so even if you only have 1 life and you cast a spell, you won't die. For helmet, my choice was the Crown of the Inward Eye. It fits right into the build with everything. All of its stats is useful, and it is also a very cheap item. The same goes with the gloves, it's a Shaper's Touch, and since we are an Inquisitor leaning heavily into the strength and intelligence scaling portion, it gives us a lot. For boots, the only choice is Stampede. Stampede means your movement speed is 150% of your base movement speed, no matter what. It does not say that your action speed is, so it doesn't give you freeze immunity and you will still get in stack of the delirium slowdowns and so on. For an amulet, my choice was Astromantis. Again, this is a cheap unique, you can find it with good implicits. For rings, I would look for amethyst rings, because you don't really have any type of chaos resistance, and that's important for late game maps. So look for a good fractured ones. I recommend strength. It can be cheap, it really depends on the amount of strength it has. Then I recommend using essences to just roll intelligence on them. If you are lucky, you can hit life and a bunch of useful stats. For belts, there is also a cheap unique one that you can use, and you can just add quality to improve these stats. If you have a divine, you can search for a really good belt as an upgrade. You can craft an awesome one for yourself, but it would cost a lot, and you can just search for these quote-unquote failed crafts by big boy crafters. One of the biggest upgrades that you can get for this character, for this build, is Nimis. Unfortunately, Nimis is or was really expensive this league. I bought mine for 34 divines, and that's a lot. It usually goes around 13, 15, but this is the biggest upgrade because of the returning projectiles and because of the shotgunning ability of Ice Spear and the new Soulrend gem. Of course, if you use any other spells that are not projectiles, then it doesn't really matter. Since we are using common unique items, it is very easy to find good corrupted implicits on them. You can check out the wiki, there is a page to check out all the possible implicits, and then on the trade side you can just search for a unique item. You can create a group, make it count, search for all the implicit mods you are interested in, and set the count to 1 or maybe even 2. See the results, there will be something that's cheap and you can use it. Do not forget, however, that with corrupted items it is more expensive to suck at them, link them or to recolor them. You would need to use special tainted currencies and they can get expensive. So if you can, also search for linked items with the correct colors that you would need. So with this build there is a huge problem. If you check out Energy Shield, it does not protect you from chaos damage. It means the chaos damage goes through your Energy Shield straight to your life, and since we are a low life build, most probably you will have like 10 life or so, and it means instant death from the slightest amount of chaos damage that touches you. There are some unique items that enables Energy Shield to stop doing that, but in our case the only option is the coruscating elixir. The safest way to use this flask is to get it to at least 20% quality. You can get it to higher if you use the syndicate crafting option. You can do the same things for your other 2 flasks, and you should be able to roll increased duration mod or gaining more charges. My recommended 3 flasks are basically the other 2 besides the coruscating that helps you mitigate elemental damage. Since this build we won't have too many elemental resistance from the items, this is one way to fix that problem. Unfortunately we have to sacrifice 1 or 2 flask slot because we are using the traitor passive node. This enables us to keep up all these 3 flasks all the time. I use mostly this build to farm ups and simulacrums, so I used 4 flasks instead of 3. This enables me to use one of the best in slot flasks for this character, which is the Oriat flask or the Shaper flask. The Oriat feels awesome for mapping, and the Shaper one gives you a lot of extra damage against a single target, for both Ice Spear and Soulrend. These can be expensive, but just like with Nimis, these can be investments for your future builds too. When I started out with this character I died a lot. What fixed that is a Watcher's Eye, with the energy shield gain on hit. That enabled me to farm out more levels. There are a lot of great mods on Watcher's Eye, make sure you check them out. Later I choose the gaining plus charges on critical strikes, so I can keep up 4 Flasks instead of 3 comfortably, and I got some defense against crits. With the current Affliction League, we got access to some awesome new tech. These are basically new Ascendancies, new Wildwood Ascendancies on top of the regular ones. By far the best option for this build is the Primalist. It gives you a lot of option to fix something with your build, mostly around triggering the spell, more on that later. I also use a Javel to get endurance charges. Endurance charges helps a lot, but you have multiple options to get it into your build. There is also a new great unique Javel, it was taken I think, and you can get some awesome mods for your build. My Ascendancy choice for this build was Inquisitor, because I wanted to lean into this attribute stacking. You don't have to care about resistance penetration, it gives you Battle Mage, and the other nodes also useful as well. For Pantheon I choose the one that gives you freeze immunity, and also you can be immune to stuns for 2 seconds. If you check out the Wikipedia page, stun is based on your life, and with a low life build you will get to be stunned all the time, and this one prevents that, or at least you always have 2 seconds to spin and win. For the other one I chose the one that gives some level of protection against corrupted blood, but you can choose something else if you solve this problem with an implicit mod on a Javel. You can check out all the gem links I used in this build. What's important here is there is a small difference how I use Soulrend and Ice Spear. With Ice Spear I have to get some penetration. The easiest option for that is to get it as an anointment. You could also get it using the Javel, Inescapable, Escape something, I don't know what. But since we are all unique we cannot use the Eldritch Implicits for example. Besides that, with Ice Spear I use greater multiple projectiles because of how Ice Spear behaves and scales with additional projectiles, and the cost of the skill is much lower than the Soulrend. For Soulrend I have to change the anointment to get the Clever Thief. With the Energy Blade your base hit damage is also kind of high. Since we are using Mana Leech and Instant Mana Leech, that would help you a lot to counter this problem. In my version it seems that using critical damage is much more beneficial than using additional projectiles even for shotgunning, so I changed that too, and of course you have to change the skill itself. If you do not use Nimis, then instead of the crit damage I would recommend using the returning projectiles. If you are using the return proj support, then it means where you have to do the gem swap, both of them would be green. In the other case I would recommend getting at least one white socket into your chest. The most important mechanic that we use with this build is Cast on Critical Strike. It means that you will trigger your spell when you hit with a critical strike. So how can you scale it, how can you min-max it? First of all, you want to make sure that your hit chance is 100%, even against evasive monsters. Then you want to hit the trigger cap with a matching attack speed. You can check out the Wikipedia page, there is a lot of information about this, but basically, based on how much cooldown reduction you have, there are multiple breakpoints. You want to be as close as possible to this breakpoint, but never get over it. If you get over it just by a little, it can just halve your DPS. Fortunately, you can check it easily based on the wiki, based on the in-game information about your attack speed, and path of building also helps you a lot. There are some good sources to get this cooldown reduction. In general, you want to hit the 52%, which means that you can basically trigger your spell 10 times each second. Well, a little bit more than 10 times, but you should never ever go above this 10.1. Increasing the cooldown reduction also means that you have to scale your attack speed. Good source of cooldown reductions is getting it from the Awakened custom critical gem, getting it from a belt, jewels, can be boots but we use Stampede, and in this league using charms. After you improve your cooldown reduction and matched it with the corresponding attack speed, we face a new problem. Triggering a spell costs mana since Expedition League, I think. So you have to solve this problem. Fortunately, you can do this in multiple layers. You can get Mana Leech, Instant Leech, you can get reduced mana cost, you can get less mana cost, you can get minus mana cost on non-channeling skills, and you can get some mana regeneration, mostly from the Clarity Aura and some passive points. Capping your crit to 100% is also very important. If you are playing this build or any similar build, when you are starting it out, it is not really necessary to hit that 100% crit and to hit every number. Just play the build, you will get more currency and you can just constantly improve your character, improve your build. This build has really good defenses. I feel like it's kind of easy to reach level 100 with this build. You will have high amount of armor, evasion, over the cap elemental resist, less elemental damage taken, energy shield leech, instant leech, energy shield gain on hit, reduced crit damage taken, reduced physical damage taken, endurance charges, capped block, capped spell block. So this build is really tanky. This is why I am mostly able to do a Simulacrum 30 without dying. With Omens, unfortunately, we can't really use most of them because we are always on low life. The one that saves your X can be very useful if you are above 94, 95. That's where leveling up start to be very slow. So how much would it cost to build this again right now? We can just check out the trade site and make a quick calculation. There can be a few very expensive items in this build. One of them is Nimis, the other one is a split personality Javel. Building around the split personality means that we have to take a different route on the passive tree, but currently it's so expensive that it's just not worth it. In the current state of my build, I can kill some of the Ubers and I can farm really juiced maps and Simulacrum without dying. A really good Watcher's Eye or the new It Was Taken Javel can also be expensive, but they are not necessary. You will only look for 1 or 2 good rolls there. With the charms, the same thing. You should just look for one good mod that you want to use in your build. For example, in this build I highly recommend increasing the base critical chance and also getting power charges on critical strikes. With those you will be able to hit those 100% chance to crit without pushing your attributes well above the 1000 mark or 1500 ones. So just look for one mod that you would like to use, check out if it's a prefix or suffix, check out the Ascendancy. So if you choose a prefix that comes from an assassin, it means that you can choose a suffix beside it from another Ascendancy that is int base or partly int base. So in this case, the Witch classes, Shadow classes and Templar classes. Don't buy expensive shit, look for the cheap options. Here is the list of the MTX I used for this look, if you are interested. For leveling I basically used the strong leveling Unix. I leveled up as a self-cast character and this unit helped me a lot. Like, it was actually surprising how much it did help for me to kill Kitava in the 4th hour. So that was a pretty quick leveling experience. So overall this build is strong, fun to play, you can farm a lot of things, it can be a boss killer if you want it to be, but mostly with Ice Spear. The damage uptime is great. You have some options of what skills or auras you want to use, but unfortunately you do not have too many options with the items itself. This isn't a league starter friendly, so I do not recommend it to be your first character. However, this can be a very good character as your second one, just as I did. I would say it's a no for hardcore as well. I have died too many times with my 4 flasks when I was just checking out items on the ground for too long and I forgot to reset my flasks. Thanks for watching. If this video helped you, leave a like, that helps. Also you can just subscribe and hit the bell to see more build videos like this, and see you next time.